Hello everyone and welcome to our first edited video. Today we'll be giving you a guide to the GT3 cars of iRacing based on our team's opinions in hopes that it'll help whether you're a new driver looking for their first GT3 car or a vet looking to get into your next competitive car. Today we'll be starting with mid and rear engine cars and then move on to the front engine cars. Starting off with the Acura NSX GT3. First off, the car's got a great ability to put power down out of corners. The car naturally gives you a feel to get on the throttle hard and early to really push the car out of the corners. The steering of the car feels very light, which makes the car feel agile and responsive compared to something like the Mercedes-AMG, which is a little bit slower turn-in type of car. In my personal opinion, the car typically feels slower in the straights. It's necessarily not. I think it's just more of a feel thing. Kind of, something mentally that comes up based on the way the car makes your brain feel, because it's not like a loud, screaming V8 car. It's more tame. In my experience, the NSX handles large curbs very well for being a light mid-engine car and tends to stay very settled. The car offers great visibility, especially if you make some camera adjustments from your Control F12 menu, or all F12. And it feels small, the car does. I mean, it's very maneuverable, allows you to squeeze in and out of cars and traffic. The dash in the car is simple, but it's great at giving you the information you need to have. It's not trying to do too much, it's not doing too little. But overall, I would say the NSX GT3 is a very good option if you're looking for a car that's nimble, responsive through corners, and forgiving with curbs. It's pretty easy to learn, and it's all around just a pretty quick, self-explanatory, easy to push car. Up next, we have the Audi R8 GT3 EVO 2. One of the first things you'll notice about the Audi is how sensitive the brakes are. Small amounts of inputs go a long way, so smooth inputs key to make the brakes work at their optimal performance. The car rotates very easily in corners with the help of the brakes and the horsepower. This can be a huge plus for someone that's looking for a car that's eager to rotate. On the other hand, if not balanced carefully, it can catch you off guard. In terms of suspension, I'd call it mid-tier when it comes to handling curbs and bumps. It doesn't glide over them as well as the BMW M4 GT3 or the Ford Mustang GT3, but it's also not brutally stiff where it's unable to take them. Similar to the in-corner rotation, some curves may catch you off guard. The car does excel in traction on wet tracks, however. On the power side of things, the R8 has a feeling of raw, brutal power. You feel it in the straights with the exhaust music, the TC fighting for grip on exit, and the overall speed of the car. Visibility from the cockpit's pretty good, nothing too restrictive. The dash leaves with a lot to be desired, however. The only color coding you really get is for cold tires and traction control as it activates. So if you're wanting to check detailed information, you'll have to look down, which can be a bit of a distraction in the middle of a race, obviously. Overall, I would say the Audi R8 GT3 EVO 2 feels like a mixed bag. It's fast in a straight line, rotates very well, and can be fun to drive, but the heavy feel, sensitive brakes, and just fairly stiff suspension can make it a bit more difficult to be very consistent with lap times. but with use over time and getting a good feel for the car is, it'll be a very strong choice once it's something you become comfortable with and learn the rotation of the car. Up next, we will look at the Chevrolet Corvette Z06 GT3 R. The Corvette is one of the newest cars in iRacing's GT3 lineup and makes for a very good new feeling of a car. One of the first things you'll notice about the Corvette is how light and agile the car is. The front end is very sharp and pointy, which gives you a ton of confidence when entering and exiting corners. Exiting corners in the Corvette provides a ton of grip, allowing for you to get on the power very early, similarly to the Acura. The car feels quick in a straight line as well and gives the driver a good sense of speed. It just loves to be driven hard and pushed. The suspension feels very stable and takes curbs quite well. Again, it's not as smooth as a larger front engine car like the BMW or Ford, but is still confident on curbs and is more forgiving than the R8. Cockpit visibility is solid. You can see your lines clearly and nothing feels obstructed. The dash page is another highlight of the car. It's very simple, color-coded, and extremely user-friendly. All the information you need is right where you'd expect it, color-coded well as mentioned, and it just works. Overall, the Corvette Z06 GT3R is a fantastic package of a car. It's light, it's agile, it has plenty of grip with a fast and stable feel both on straights and through the corners. It strikes a nice balance between performance and usability, and it makes a great choice for both your competitive car or a casual car. I mean, it just does. It's a good all-arounder for the mid-engines. Has a great engine tone to it as well, and just an overall fun car to drive. Next, we move on to the Ferrari 296 GT3. Initially, the car feels light and agile, with lots of horsepower being pushed through rear wheels. The 296 GT3 does have a very good turn-in, but I would say it's a touch less aggressive than the Corvette. The suspension's quite stiff, but it still allows you to run curbs without having to hesitate for the car to lose traction and become unsettled. As mentioned previously, the car does have great turn-in, but is also prone to oversteer or over-rotation, much like the Audi. So the car will reward precise braking and throttle application in and out of corners to really perfect the rotation. Inside the cockpit of the Ferrari, the dash pages are well laid out and color coded. It makes it easy to glance at the info you need without fully taking your eyes off the track. Overall, the Ferrari 296 GT3 is a very agile and capable car. I would say it's another very good overall pick for a mid-engine car, especially for drivers with a bit more experience and knowledge on forcing a car to rotate to make it handle corners better. Up next, we dive into the McLaren 720S GT3. The 720S feels lightweight, nimble, and pointy in the front, especially with a good dialed-in setup. It's sharp, but not quite as aggressive on turn-in as something like the Corvette Z06 GT3 R, but still it's quick to respond and really fun to place into corners. The suspension feels stiff on the track, but it soaks up bumps and curves surprisingly well. It's stable, which helps a lot when you're pushing through chicanes or tighter sections, but still occasionally struggles with some understeer. I believe some of the understeer is prompted from how the car is set up into the corner. If you overdrive into the corner, then it will struggle with the understeer. It doesn't soak it up as easily as some cars do as far as the overdriving. With the right brake bias and setup adjustments, the McLaren rotates really well as well. However, it does have a tendency to understeer at higher speeds, which can catch you out if you're not ready for it. Thankfully, that's something you can usually tune out depending on the track and setup. Visibility inside the cockpit is solid, especially with making some adjustments to your camera angle. And honestly, the dash is one of the best in the GT3 field. It's super clean set up, very well organized, easy to read without taking your eyes away from the road in front of you, and it's color coded very well. Overall, the McLaren 720S GT3 EVO is a strong, responsive car that rewards good setups and smooth driving. It's agile, stable over bumps, and has one of the most user-friendly cockpits out there. With the right tweaks, it's definitely a car that can fight at the front of the pack with anything else out there. Now, onto the Porsche 911 GT3 R. What can I say to start other than it's a Porsche? It's rear-engined, and it has a reputation for being one of the strongest GT3 cars in the field. Right away, the Porsche feels exactly how you'd expect. It handles incredibly well. The turn in is sharp, it has plenty of grip, and with all of the power, the car just flies around the circuit. One of the biggest highlights is its gearbox. It's short, precise, and makes for lightning fast changes of speed and direction. It really helps the car feel alive and responsive. The suspension is definitely on the stiffer side. For the most part, it takes curbs without a problem, but if you hit one wrong, the car can get unsettled quickly. It's not unusual for GT3 cars, but it is more noticeable here than it is in some of the rivals. What makes the 992 so good is that it's well rounded. It doesn't necessarily do anything perfectly, but it does everything really well, enough to be rapid over a stint. It's one of those cars that feels solid in almost every situation, which is why it's so popular in both sprint and endurance racing. Visibility from the cockpit is excellent, and it's easy to keep track of traffic around you. The dash, however, leaves a little room for improvement. There's some color coding, but things like tire pressures can be a bit tricky to read at a glance. That said, it does give you a lot of information overall. Some of it's not much of stuff that you'll use, but the information is there. Overall, the Porsche 911 GT3 R 992 is one of the most complete GT3 cars in iRacing. It's sharp, powerful, reliable, and versatile. It doesn't have a single magic trick, but it's consistent everywhere. And when you add in the classic Porsche driving feel, it's hard to not love the car. Next is the final mid-engine car, the Lamborghini Huracan GT3. The Huracan immediately feels sharp and responsive. The turn end's aggressive, and the front end really wants to bite into the corners. It's a car that feels alive, but that also means it can be a little twitchy if you're not smooth with your inputs. On throttle, it has plenty of punch and carries speed really well out of corners, which makes it feel competitive on almost any track. The suspension is on the stiffer side, but it handles curbs decently well for a mid-engine car. Still, if you hit curbs too aggressively, the Huracan can get unsettled. So, you'll need to be mindful on tracks with tall curbing. One of its strengths, however, is its rotation. The car loves to rotate mid-corner, which makes it very maneuverable through technical sections. But that can also lead to over-rotation if you push too hard, especially on corner exit. It rewards precision but can punish overdriving the car. Visibility from the cockpit is solid with no major blind spots to worry about. The dash is clean and functional, though it doesn't stand out as much as some of the newer GT3 cars. It gets the job done, but it's not the most user-friendly compared to a dash like the McLaren or the Mustang. Overall, the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 EVO is a fast, aggressive option in iRacing. It's sharp, quick, and it's very capable in the right hands, but it also demands respect. If you're precise and smooth, the Lambo will reward you. If not, it can be difficult to tame. Up next is the first of our front-engine cars, the Mercedes-AMG GT3. The Mercedes feels big and heavy compared to some of the mid-engine cars, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's extremely stable, especially on corner entry, and it gives you a ton of confidence to push hard without worrying about snap oversteer. The steering feels weighty, which makes it less nimble than something like the McLaren or the Ferrari, but that also adds to its planted, predictable feel. Suspension-wise, the AMG handles bumps and curbs really well. It's one of the more forgiving cars in the GT3 class, which makes it a solid choice on tracks with aggressive curb sections or rougher sections. Rotation is also where the Mercedes is a bit more limited. It doesn't rotate as eagerly as a car like the Audi or the Lamborghini. You really need to manage trail braking to get the front end to bite. It kind of has a tendency to push through corners. But once you've adjusted your driving style, the consistency and balance it provides over a stint could be hard to beat. On the straights, the AMG has solid speed, though it's not quite as punchy as a car like the Mustang. Cockpit visibility overall is decent, with a slightly bulkier feel compared to the Porsche or the Ferrari. The dash layout is functional, but a little dated compared to some of the newer GT3s. It has the information you need, but it's not as clean or color-coded as cars like the Mustang or the McLaren. Overall, the Mercedes-AMG GT3 2020 is one of the most stable, consistent cars in iRacing. It might not have the sharpest turn in or the most aggressive rotation, but its predictability, forgiving suspension, and overall balance make it a go-to car for endurance racers and newer drivers. Up next, we have one of the team's favorites at the time of making this video, the Ford Mustang GT3. The Mustang GT3 feels big and planted right from the start. You definitely notice the weight compared to some of the lighter mid-engine cars, but that doesn't mean it's slow. In fact, it's surprisingly agile for its size, and more than that makes up for it with horsepower. The turn-in is strong, and the car feels stable mid-corner. On corner exit, traction is excellent. You can put the power down hard and early without worrying too much about the rear stepping out. The suspension strikes a really nice balance. It's forgiving over the bumps and curbs, but still stiff enough to give you confidence through high-speed corners. On tracks with tall curbing, it handles them better than most and keeps itself settled and balanced. In a straight line, the Mustang feels fast and has a great sense of speed. It's got the muscle you'd expect from a Ford, but it also carries speed well through corners. While it doesn't rotate as quickly as a car like the Corvette or the Acura, it still manages mid-corner balance very well without feeling lazy. The visibility from the cockpit is pretty good with some camera position adjustments, as well as the dash layout is, in my opinion, one of the best in the game. It's got very good color coding and large fonts where it really matters. Reading the dash on the Mustang while racing is very easy and it takes little to no attention off the road. Overall, the Mustang is a very strong choice in iRacing, and you will find it towards the top of a lot of leaderboards. The car is stable, quick, forgiving, and very well balanced, which allows for the car to be super consistent when driven properly. Up next, we're going to go over the newly updated BMW M4 GT3 EVO. While the new update changes the physics of the car and some other small things, it still feels very similar to the previous M4 GT3. Keep in mind these opinions on the updated car are from the iRacing medium downforce setup at Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. The car still feels a bit lazy on turn-in, and it doesn't seem to want to drive hard into corners like some of the competitors, such as the Mustang. The suspension still feels very soft and gives you a good feel of the weight and balance of the car. The car glides over the larger curbs, much like the original version. The M4 EVO still feels like it has all of the torque that it had previously that helped make the car drive so well out of the corners. The EVO, however, seems as though the rear end of the car is a lot more free and willing to rotate. This is a good change in the car as it will allow you to counter some of the understeer. The car has a very good visibility as well with the large windows, and you can see wherever you're at on the track. The EVO has the same dash setup as the previous car. The dash leaves room for improvement, as there isn't much color coding, and you'll need to look down to the dash to find some info on occasion. The car still runs competitive times as the previous rendition, maybe even faster times in the right hands, but overall the BMW M4 GT3 EVO refines what the car already did well. It's stable, torquey, and forgiving with improved rotation out of the corners and the same curb-friendly suspension. While it's not the sharpest car in the GT3 field, its consistency and drivability make it a dependable option. Last but not least, the moment most of you have been waiting for. Brand new to iRacing, the Aston Martin Vantage GT3 EVO. Keep in mind again that this review is my opinion with the car on the iRacing medium downforce setup at Indy, and I have not a ton of seat time in the car yet. When hopping in the car, the first thing I noticed on track was how sharp the turn-in was. For it being a large front-engine car, I was expecting it to be a bit softer and not as tight into corners, but I was very wrong. On top of its excellent turn-in, the brakes and the loads of power the Aston makes allows it to rotate very well mid-corner. The car also does a very good job allowing power on slip to get the car sideways through the corner and into the exit. A large portion of the car's ability to rotate comes from not only the horsepower, but the stiffness of the suspension. The Vantage GT3 has a very stiff suspension compared to other large front-engine GT3 cars in the class. Despite the stiff suspension, the car still takes the larger curves very well without unsettling the car. Due to the car's ability to rotate, you do have to be mindful of some snap oversteer in heavy braking corners. The amount of slip under braking can be adjusted quite easily with brake bias adjustments to hone it in exactly how you want it to feel. The transmission of the Aston is also a highlight as it has very fast shifts to allow you to keep the car right where you want it in the power band. The car has overall decent visibility. With camera adjustments, however, it's just as good as the rest of the GT3 field. The dash, however, is one of the better ones in the class, in my opinion. It is color coded very well and allows you to easily see tire temps, your gear, lap times you're running, along with color coded traction control and engine maps on the dash. So, sort of a final overall conclusion on the brand new Aston Martin Vantage GT3 EVO. It's a very good addition to the already crowded GT3 field, but the devs did a great job at still making it have its own identity and feeling. I think it's a great choice of car whether you're just getting into GT3 or you're a veteran to the sim. Once setup shops have begun to roll out setups and we get rolling into the next season, I can see this becoming a very popular car with a lot of potential. In conclusion, every car has its very own unique feel, and each car isn't the right choice for everyone or every track, but each car will provide a competitive time at every track with the right driving style and setup. My best recommendation is to hop into the sim when iRacing's down for maintenance and offering the test drive feature. Drive each car at a track that you're very familiar with and just give them about 10 laps or so on a baseline or fixed setup to ensure your tires are up to proper temp. It'll give you an opportunity to actually feel for yourself how the cars react to your driving style. At the end of the day, you will end up owning multiple GT3 cars, as some tracks suit the front engine cars and some fit the rear to mid engine cars better. Regardless if you're picking your first GT3 car or you're a vet looking for your next GT3 for an endurance event, the right car is out there for you, and I hope this guide allows you to make the best decision to fit your driving style. I just want to say thanks everybody for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. We've got a lot that we're working on in the channel right now. Also want to quickly give a shout out to Rogue Energy, our partners. If you go over there and you're looking to buy anything, use Crossroads Racing for 10% off your order. Again, thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully this video was able to help you, and we will talk to you soon. Peace.